The Senate confirmation hearing room was packed beyond capacity that Tuesday morning. Kash Patel, nominee for FBI director, sat confidently at the witness table, his dark suit impeccable, his expression radiating the self-assurance of someone who believed his confirmation was merely a formality. Across from him, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee prepared their questions, including freshman Senator Jasmine Crockett from Texas, who had recently been appointed to fill a vacant Senate seat. Patel glanced at his notes, then looked up at Crockett with barely concealed dismissiveness. When she began her questioning about constitutional protections in federal investigations, Patel interrupted with a condescending laugh. "Senator Crockett," he said, his tone dripping with condescension, "perhaps someone should explain to you how federal law enforcement actually works before you attempt to question someone with my extensive experience in national security law." The room stirred uncomfortably. Several senators exchanged glances. But what followed would become one of the most devastating takedowns in Senate confirmation history. Crockett slowly set down her papers, looked directly at Patel, and began a systematic dismantling that would not only expose his legal incompetence, but end his nomination before the day was over. Before we dive into this explosive confirmation hearing that changed everything, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This is a moment that will be studied in law schools for decades. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from, especially if you're following these crucial confirmation hearings. Now, let's witness how Senator Jasmine Crockett absolutely destroyed a nominee who thought he was untouchable. The path to this confrontation had been months in the making. Kash Patel, aged 44, had built his reputation as a fierce partisan warrior in Washington's political battles. With his law degree from Pace University and his background as a former federal prosecutor, Patel had positioned himself as an expert on national security law and intelligence matters. He had served in various roles during the previous administration, including as Chief of Staff to the Acting Secretary of Defense and as a Senior Director on the National Security Council. His supporters praised him as a reformer who would clean up what they called the deep state. His critics saw him as someone who would politicize law enforcement for partisan purposes. Jasmine Crockett's path to the Senate had been unexpected but remarkable. After her viral confrontations in the House had established her as one of the most effective questioners in Congress, she had been appointed to fill a Senate vacancy when Texas Senator John Cornyn had retired for health reasons. At 43, she brought her extensive experience as a civil rights attorney and her proven ability to expose false expertise to the upper chamber. Her appointment to the Judiciary Committee had been specifically requested by Democratic leadership, who recognized her unique ability to cut through political theater with precise legal questioning. The stakes for Patel's confirmation couldn't have been higher. If confirmed as FBI director, he would oversee the nation's premier law enforcement agency, with enormous power over federal investigations, counterintelligence operations, and national security matters. His supporters argued he would bring needed reform to an agency they claimed had been weaponized against conservatives. His opponents feared he would turn the FBI into a tool for political retribution. Crockett had spent weeks preparing for this hearing. Her staff had compiled every legal brief Patel had written, every statement he had made about law enforcement, every position he had taken on constitutional issues. They had found something troubling. Repeated instances where Patel had misrepresented legal precedents, misstated statutory requirements, and made claims about national security law that were simply false. She had participated in 15 mock sessions, preparing for every possible response Patel might give. The morning session had started predictably. Republican senators lobbed softball questions at Patel, allowing him to expound on his vision for reforming the FBI. He spoke confidently about returning to constitutional principles and ending the weaponization of law enforcement, though he was notably vague on specifics. Democratic senators pressed him on his past statements about investigating political opponents, but Patel deflected with practiced ease, claiming his words had been taken out of context. When Crockett's turn came, Patel visibly relaxed. He had clearly been briefed that she was new to the Senate, relatively young, and from a legal background he didn't respect. His body language shifted to casual dismissiveness. He actually leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms, a gesture of contempt that cameras captured clearly. "Mr. Patel," Crockett began, her voice measured and professional, "you've stated publicly that FISA warrants are, and I quote, unconstitutional violations of the Fourth Amendment. Yet you've also said you would expand surveillance capabilities as FBI director. Can you reconcile these positions?" Patel smirked. "Senator, I don't expect someone without experience in national security law to understand the nuances of FISA applications. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is complex legislation that requires years of practice to fully comprehend." "I see," Crockett replied calmly. "So you're saying FISA is too complex for me to understand? Well then, let's start with something simpler. Can you explain the two-step process for obtaining a FISA warrant?" Patel's smirk widened. "Senator Crockett, perhaps someone should explain to you how federal law enforcement actually works before you attempt to question someone with my extensive experience in national security law. FISA warrants involve classified procedures that I can't discuss in an open hearing." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. Several senators shifted uncomfortably. Even some Republicans looked uneasy with Patel's dismissiveness. But Crockett remained perfectly composed. "Mr. Patel," she said, pulling out a document, "the basic FISA process isn't classified. It's outlined in public law. Title 50, Chapter 36, Subchapter 1 of the U.S. Code. Are you claiming that publicly available federal statutes are classified?" Patel's expression flickered with uncertainty. "I'm saying the practical application involves classified elements." "The practical application? Yes," Crockett agreed. "But not the basic legal framework. So let me ask again, what are the two steps for obtaining a FISA warrant?" This is information any first-year law student studying national security law would know. Patel shifted in his seat. "The FBI applies to the FISA court with probable cause." "Stop right there," Crockett interrupted. "You just made a fundamental error. FISA doesn't use a probable cause standard. It requires probable cause that the target is a foreign power or agent of a foreign power, plus that the facility to be monitored is being used by that foreign power. It's a two-pronged test, not a simple probable cause standard. Did you not know this? Or were you attempting to mislead this committee?" The room had gone completely quiet. Patel's face was reddening. "Senator, I've overseen dozens of FISA applications." "Have you?" Crockett pulled out another document. "Because according to the Inspector General's report, you were repeatedly excluded from the FISA process during your time at the NSC because, and I quote, Mr. Patel's understanding of the legal requirements was deemed insufficient." Would you like me to read the full quote? Patel's lawyer leaned in to whisper urgently in his ear, but Patel waved him off. That report was politically motivated. The Inspector General appointed by the previous administration was politically motivated against you? Crockett asked, her eyebrows raising. The same administration you served in? She didn't wait for an answer. Let's move on to something else. You've claimed that you successfully prosecuted dozens of terrorism cases as a federal prosecutor. Can you name 5? Patel straightened. Those cases involve classified information. Criminal prosecutions are public record, Mr. Patel. The dockets are available on Pacer. I'm not asking for classified information. I'm asking for case names from public federal court records. Can you name 5 terrorism cases you personally prosecuted? The silence stretched out. Patel's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear again. Finally, Patel spoke. I was involved in numerous national security matters. That's not what I asked, Crockett interrupted. You specifically claimed to have prosecuted dozens of terrorism cases. Prosecution means you were the attorney of record in criminal proceedings. So again, name 5. Name 3. Name 1. Patel's face was now bright red. Senator, my work in national security often involved matters that didn't result in public prosecutions. So you lied, Crockett said flatly. When you claimed to have prosecuted dozens of terrorism cases, that was false. You were creating a qualification you don't actually have. She pulled out a thick folder. I have here your complete record as an assistant U.S. attorney from Pacer. You were attorney of record on exactly 3 cases during your time as a federal prosecutor. One was a drug possession case that was dismissed. One was a financial fraud case that ended in acquittal, and one was an immigration violation that was plea bargained to time served. 0 terrorism cases. 0 national security cases. 0 FISA applications. The Democratic senators were now leaning forward with interest. The Republicans looked increasingly uncomfortable. The chairman, Senator Durbin, seemed to be suppressing a smile. But let's talk about your actual legal experience, Crockett continued, her voice gaining momentum. You've claimed expertise in constitutional law. So let me ask you a basic question. What level of scrutiny applies to content-based restrictions on speech? Patel looked confused. The First Amendment protects free speech. That's not what I asked. I asked about the level of scrutiny. This is first-year constitutional law. Any law student could answer this. Strict scrutiny, intermediate scrutiny, or rational basis. Patel was floundering. The courts balance various factors. It's strict scrutiny, Crockett said firmly. Content-based restrictions on speech trigger strict scrutiny. Reed versus Town of Gilbert, 576 U.S. 155. This is fundamental constitutional law that any FBI director should know. But you don't know it, do you? She pulled out another document. Let's discuss your memo on reforming the FBI, where you wrote that the director should have the power to unilaterally declassify any document. Are you aware that the classification system is established by executive order, not by FBI policy? Patel tried to recover. As FBI director, I would work within the established framework. That's not what you wrote, Crockett interrupted, reading from the document. You wrote, quote, the FBI director should have absolute authority over classification decisions within the Bureau. That's legally impossible. The FBI director cannot override executive orders. Did you not know this when you wrote it? Or were you deliberately proposing illegal actions? The hearing room was now electric with tension. Patel's nomination was clearly in serious trouble. His supporters in the gallery looked stunned. The Democrats were barely containing their satisfaction. Let's talk about your book, Crockett continued, pulling out a copy. You wrote extensively about FISA abuse. On page 147, you claim that the Woods procedures require FBI agents to personally verify every fact in a FISA application. Is that correct? Patel seized on this, thinking he finally had solid ground. Yes, the Woods procedures are crucial for accuracy. Wrong again, Crockett interrupted. The Woods procedures require documentation of the factual accuracy, not personal verification of every fact. FBI agents must document the source of the information and its reliability, but they're not required to personally verify every statement. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how FISA applications work. And you want to run the FBI? She turned to address the full committee. Senators, we have before us a nominee who doesn't understand FISA procedures, can't name the constitutional standards for free speech restrictions, doesn't know the limits of classification authority, has lied about his prosecution experience, and has repeatedly demonstrated fundamental ignorance of the law he would be sworn to uphold. Patel tried one last desperate attempt to salvage his dignity. Senator Crockett, I have years of experience in national security that you simply don't understand. Mr. Patel, Crockett cut him off, her voice now sharp as a blade. I understand that you were a civil litigation attorney who handled personal injury cases before your political appointments. I understand that your entire national security experience consists of political positions where you were repeatedly overruled by actual career professionals. I understand that you've built a career on claiming expertise you don't have. She pulled out one final document. This is a letter signed by 47 former FBI officials, both Republican and Democratic appointees, stating that you lack the basic legal knowledge necessary to lead the Bureau. They cite 17 specific instances where you misrepresented federal law in public statements. Would you like me to read them all? The room was dead silent. Patel sat frozen, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. His lawyer was frantically writing notes, probably preparing for the withdrawal of his nomination. But here's what really concerns me, Mr. Patel, Crockett continued, her voice becoming more somber. It's not just that you don't know the law. It's that you're so confident in your ignorance that you feel comfortable mocking those who actually do know it. You assumed because I'm young, because I'm black, because I'm a woman, because I'm new to the Senate, that you could dismiss my questions with condescension. But I've been practicing law while you've been practicing politics. I've been in courtrooms while you've been in green rooms. I've defended the Constitution while you've been distorting it. She looked directly at him. The FBI needs a director who understands the law, respects the law, and can uphold the law without partisan consideration. You've demonstrated today that you're none of those things. Your mockery of my legal knowledge has only exposed your own ignorance. And that ignorance disqualifies you from leading the nation's premier law enforcement agency. The impact was immediate and devastating. Republican Senator Josh Hawley, who had been one of Patel's strongest supporters, passed a note to Senator Durbin. Within minutes, the chairman called for a recess. The Republican caucus huddled in urgent discussion. Patel sat alone at the witness table, his dreams of running the FBI evaporating in real time. During the recess, reporters scrambled to verify Crockett's claims. Every fact she had cited checked out. The PACER records confirmed Patel's minimal prosecution experience. Legal experts confirmed his errors about FISA procedures. Former officials confirmed the Inspector General's report about his exclusion from classified processes. When the hearing resumed, Senator Lindsey Graham, the ranking Republican, made a stunning announcement. Mr. Chairman, after consultation with my colleagues, I believe it would be appropriate to postpone further consideration of this nomination pending additional review. It was Senate speak for "this nomination is dead." Patel sat in stunned silence as the chairman agreed to the postponement. Everyone in the room knew there would be no additional review. The nomination was over. Within hours, the video of Crockett's questioning had garnered millions of views. Legal Twitter was calling it the most devastating confirmation hearing questioning in modern history. Crockett doesn't just destroy nominees, one commentator wrote. She performs legal autopsies on live television. Conservative media struggled to defend Patel. Some tried to claim Crockett had been unfairly aggressive, but the video showed her maintaining perfect professional composure throughout. Others argued that practical experience mattered more than legal knowledge, but even they couldn't explain away Patel's fundamental errors about basic law. By evening, Patel had withdrawn his nomination. His statement claimed he wanted to avoid a partisan circus, but everyone knew the truth. Crockett had exposed him as fundamentally unqualified. His political career, built on claimed expertise he didn't possess, was effectively over. The next day, legal experts began analyzing the exchange in detail. Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe called it a masterclass in how to expose fake expertise through methodical questioning. Yale's Uka Lamar noted that Crockett had demonstrated the difference between political talking points and actual legal knowledge. The impact extended beyond just Patel's failed nomination. Other nominees for key positions suddenly became much more careful about their claims of legal expertise. The standard for Senate confirmation hearings had been raised. Nominees could no longer assume they could bluff their way through questioning with vague appeals to experience. For Crockett, the moment established her as one of the most formidable questioners in the Senate despite being its newest member. Senior senators began deferring to her on legal matters. Her colleagues requested her presence in their own preparation sessions. She had earned respect through preparation and knowledge. 3 days after the hearing, Crockett appeared on a major news program to discuss the confrontation. This wasn't about embarrassing Mr. Patel, she explained. This was about protecting the integrity of our law enforcement institutions. The FBI director needs to understand the law they're enforcing. When someone mocks legal knowledge while displaying legal ignorance, they disqualify themselves from that position. The host asked if she had expected Patel to be so dismissive. I've learned that those with the least knowledge often have the most confidence, Crockett replied. Mr. Patel assumed he could intimidate me with condescension. Instead, he revealed that his expertise was a performance, not a reality. Law schools immediately began using the exchange as a teaching tool. The Crockett method became shorthand for systematic dismantling of false expertise through specific, factual questioning. Students studied her preparation techniques and her ability to remain composed while delivering devastating critiques. Women in law particularly embraced the moment. Here was proof that preparation could overcome condescension, that knowledge could defeat dismissiveness, that competence would always triumph over arrogance. Female lawyers shared stories of their own experiences with patronizing male colleagues, holding up Crockett as an example of how to respond. A week after the hearing, a group of former federal prosecutors published an analysis of the exchange. They noted that Crockett had used classic cross-examination techniques, starting with questions the witness thinks they can answer, gradually tightening the logical trap, then using the witness's own claims against them. This is what effective lawyering looks like, they wrote. The political implications were significant. The administration had to withdraw not just Patel but 2 other nominees who suddenly seemed less confident about their qualifications. The Senate's advice and consent role had been reinvigorated. Nominees could no longer assume that partisan loyalty would overcome lack of qualification. Republican senators privately expressed gratitude to Crockett for exposing Patel before he could be confirmed. "She saved us from a disaster," one GOP senator told reporters on Background. "Imagine if he had become FBI director and then displayed this ignorance. She did the country a service." The wider impact on political discourse was notable. The exchange became a reference point for the importance of actual expertise in government positions. Editorial boards across the political spectrum praised Crockett for demonstrating that competence should matter more than loyalty in appointments to crucial positions. 6 months later, when a new FBI director nominee appeared before the Senate, they came extraordinarily well prepared. They could cite statutes from memory, explain procedures in detail, and showed genuine respect for all questioners regardless of party. The Crockett Standard had changed the confirmation process permanently. In a law review article published a year later, Crockett reflected on the confrontation. "When Mr. Patel mocked my legal knowledge, he revealed a fundamental problem in our political system, the assumption that political power translates to substantive expertise. My response wasn't just about defending myself. It was about defending the principle that knowledge matters, that expertise is real, and that those who claim authority must be able to demonstrate competence." The article became required reading in professional responsibility courses across the country. It articulated a vision of public service where preparation was a moral obligation, where claiming false expertise was a form of public fraud, and where those with actual knowledge had a duty to expose pretenders. Patel himself largely disappeared from public life. His planned media career collapsed when producers realized he couldn't discuss legal issues without exposing his ignorance. His book sales plummeted. Speaking engagements were canceled. The man who had mocked Jasmine Crockett's legal skills had been permanently branded as someone whose own legal knowledge was fraudulent. Years later, when teaching a seminar at Harvard Law School, Crockett was asked by a student what gave her the confidence to take on someone with Patel's political connections. Her answer became legend among law students. He made a crucial mistake. He confused political power with legal knowledge. He thought because he had one, he didn't need the other. But in that hearing room, only one of those things mattered. And I had it. He didn't. The confrontation between Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett became more than just a viral moment. It became a defining example of how American democracy's checks and balances could still function. A senator, using nothing but knowledge and preparation, had stopped an unqualified nominee from taking control of a crucial law enforcement agency. Legal historians would later mark it as a turning point in confirmation hearings. Before Crockett Patel, as it came to be known, nominees could often bluff their way through with vague appeals to experience. After it, they had to demonstrate actual knowledge. The Senate's role in vetting nominees had been revitalized by one freshman senator who refused to be intimidated. The broader lesson resonated throughout American civic life. Expertise mattered. Knowledge was power. Preparation could overcome position. And sometimes, when someone mocks your skills, the best response is to demonstrate just how skilled you really are. Kash Patel had mocked Jasmine Crockett's legal abilities. Her next words didn't just shut him down. They ended his career and raised the standards for public service across the government. For those who've watched this complete breakdown of one of the most devastating Senate confirmation hearings in history, you've witnessed how preparation and genuine expertise can expose and defeat false claims of knowledge. If you found this analysis valuable, please hit that like button and share this video with anyone who needs to see what happens when condescension meets competence. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell for more coverage of these crucial moments that shape our democracy. Drop a comment below. Do you think Crockett was too harsh on Patel, or was this exactly the kind of scrutiny our nominees need? We read every comment and want your take on this historic confrontation. Remember, knowledge is power, preparation beats arrogance, and expertise will always expose ignorance in the end.